Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you to break down all the action in British basketball this week. And Dave has broken off from the excitement of England versus Senegal to be here. But my guess is, Dave, that by the time we finish this, it'll be just in time for the penalty kicks.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Which is an interesting way of maybe sorting out some of the basketball matches that we don't like going to overtime.
Indeed, yeah.
First one to make a foul shot, something like that. I could live with that.
Fortunately, my team boycotted this World Cup in protest. They manifested it in being really terrible in qualifying.
Yeah, and it also meant that we get Roy Keane in his beard.
Well, there is wins and losses everywhere you go. Let's go back to the basketball on Wednesday night and start with the Euro Cup featuring the London Lions. And there are two different pronunciations for the team that they were playing, Dave. I'm intrigued as to what the Sandancer pronunciation of it is. Slask, that's the English version. So Vukas, Slask, Wroclaw is the English version, and Vukas Śląsk Wrocław is the Polish version, if you use the Polish letters. Whichever way you use it, they got beat by London 97-80. Soko was back, but Zubcic still in the starting lineups. They have had some injury issues of late, Slask, but they only had some Parakuski, who was out. Everybody else was fit. Slask scored the first basket, and then Nelson and Decker 5 points each, 14 points in a row, and London absolutely flying.
Yeah, I mean, they've integrated Zubcic into the starting lineup now, and the takeaway, the loss that they had in relation to the bench lineup has rather been mitigated by the fact they're getting all their talent back. So you can bring Soko back, and you've got Herban coming off the bench, and Best coming off the bench. So it doesn't really matter. You don't really lose as much by having Zubcic starting, and they're comfortable with him starting because he's such a good catch and shoot guy, and such a confident player, And on top of that, Nelson was really good in this game. It was probably the best game he's played all season. He really ran it the way he wanted to. The scouting on him still not great. The same mistakes that the Cheshire team made last week. The Polish team are making this week. He was shooting the 3-pointer to his left. He was dribbling to the right and throwing lobs. But he was really under control, and he was really good. And given the depth that they have, and obviously I'm not particularly attuned to the depth of some of the European teams, but given the depth that London have, very difficult to see them losing many games if their starting lineup comes out and does that. Because they're now 9/10 deep. They just didn't look challenged. I think at times I thought it wasn't as fast as a BBL. That may sound crazy. Some of the BBL games are actually faster and actually probably harder for them to keep to play in. And Slask made some shots, and they did, and they came back into it. But overall, you just got the impression that they weren't going to lose this game from very early on.
Yeah, they were up 15. Jeva had 7 in a 13-0 run to make it 45-43 just before halftime. But then Lions, with their starting 5 back at the start of the third quarter, did exactly the same again. 11-2 run this time, 59-47. They had a 13-0 run to start the fourth quarter, and it was just a question of how many they were going to win by.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the start, if that is going to be the starting group going forward, because obviously they've got lots of games and they're going to rest guys, and guys are going to be hurt a little bit. But you have to think that probably Zubcic and Kufos are in the starting 5 now. Nelson, he appears to have settled on, and Phillips been out for so long that he's bound to be coming off the bench when he comes back. And that just leaves you with Decker, who's obviously going to start the 3, and kind of who did they start next to Nelson, and they've settled on Oni. Oni's a player. He's both sides. He's
great defensively.
He's going to be very impactful, and he hasn't probably made as many shots as he would like yet. So that group, it gives them some group definition. I mean, I can't really talk much about this game. So I thought they cruised it. Even when the other team went on the run before half time, I thought that they knew that they were playing a team that was 0-6. and they knew that they were going to be, that they had another kind of level in them to go to. So just trying to figure out London a little bit. Obviously, integrating Soko back, it was good because Soko actually gave them a focal point off the bench, and he was able to kind of attack. And he's not going to be in a game and not doing something. So he's kind of one of these.
The interesting thing for me now going forward is they've beaten the 3 teams I expected them to beat. They've beaten the 3 worst teams in the group, and the question always for me was I thought they would. The bottom end of London's range was 7th to me. And the question is, how many of the other teams in the group can they beat at home particularly, but if they can get one on, I would expect them to win the reverse fixtures of the 3 teams that they've already beaten. They will win in Trento, they'll win at home against Hamburg. On the road at Slask, I still expect them to win, but that might be the more difficult of the 3 of those games. And that'll get you to 6 and 12, which will finish 7th. If you can get to 9 and 9, depending on how things shake out, that could be 4th or 5th. And therein is, and then obviously anything better than that, you're looking at a home game in the next round.
Actually, what I'm looking at is Harry Kane just scoring our second.
Oh, has he? Is it 2-0? There we go. First goal for Kane, about time and all.
About time, I took it well. No, it doesn't look like any VAR either. But yeah, what you were saying, Dan, was absolutely right. The test will be, the teams that they've played when they've been under strength. So when they went to Gran Canaria and they weren't competitive, basically, and they're going to be playing against Gran Canaria again at home, and that'll be a kind of a test of how far they developed, how far they've come. What the difference was. But for me, the difference is fine. You haven't got players who aren't quite at that level eating up those minutes.
True.
That's the level of it, Sharma didn't play in this game. That's a heck of a, or if he did play, I didn't. It was a brief minute or two. That's a heck of a player not to have, not to need to use. Queeley didn't play in this game. He played in the early game. So while they played spot minutes as a backup guard, they're just now. I think they're complete now.
These 2 games this week made me go, wow, this is what I was expecting in the preseason, and obviously they've had things to deal with, but now they look like a proper Euro Cup level team, which is scary for the rest of the BBL.
If they do get an impactful Philip back at any point, then that finishes them off, I think, because then you're probably not even Solowad's probably not even looking at some of those minutes unless he's a defensive specialist, just no holes. No holes, length everywhere. And still my favourite player hardly playing.
I know.
Newcastle. Wojciech. Nice people, you like it.
Dave will take you out on the big market.
On the big market. We never come back after that. I'm not sure I'm the type that knows the best places.
They're all good.
Watching 12 basketball games a week doesn't necessarily.
No, it doesn't. No.
Drinking culture.
No. So Decker led the way with 18 points, 7 of 9 shooting. Nelson 5 of 9 shooting for 16 points and 6 assists. Soko 15 points and 6 rebounds. Jeremiah Martin had 18, Cody Justice 15, and Connor Morgan 14 to lead Slask. So back-to-back home games for the Lions. They were playing again on Thursday night, where they beat the Manchester Giants 95-71. Kufos and Oni were rested. Lee's injury now seems to be until January, which is a massive blow for Manchester, because obviously most of the time he's been out thus far. They haven't been playing, but they have got games to go till then. And basically London just carried on where they left off from the previous days. Zubcic and Sharma this time pushing them out to an 11-3 start. It was
with Decker and not Decker, with Oni and Kufos not playing. And you understand Kufos, obviously. Oni, Oni should, again, you think the thing with Oni is Oni's not played that many minutes. He's been around a lot of basketball. He's been jumping on executive planes to go from NBA arena to NBA arena. But when he's getting there, he's been the 14th man on the bench, so he's not actually been playing that much. So, him playing 2 games in 2 nights as well, he's probably a little bit stiff, a little bit strained. But the fact that they can do it without breaking a sweat, really is is compelling, really. I was more interested. I mean, the thing with Manchester, I was interested in Manchester in this game because I don't know if they listen to this stuff. They probably don't. I'm sure Vince would never admit to changing anything because of it. But in the, one of the things we've said previously is that, very Fletch dependent in relation to him creating stuff, moving with the basketball. And they came out the first quarter and they ran a lot of what I would call emotion offense, or what would be called emotion offense, which is basically where the ball sees both sides of the court. The bigs kind of swap at the top. One big guy comes out, catches the basketball, reverses it to the other side, and they look to move the ball around and move the defense around, which has been very different to what they've been running, which has basically been, Fletch makes a pass and somebody makes a play. That's basically been, well, it's not entirely that, but everything's been going through Ramon. And the advantages of that are it means everybody else touches the ball early and it's easier for people to get into a flow. It also helps you kind of control your defensive situation because in theory, that when the shots are going up, people are going to be in certain positions and you can get back. Disadvantage with that is it can take the ball out of your hands of your best player because it's kind of a pass the parcel thing. Whoever's got the ball when the music stops is the one who's got to unwrap the present and you've got to make the play. And sometimes that's not necessarily the guy you would want it to be. And when the music stops towards the end of the shot clock. So at the end of the first quarter in this game, I had a quick check and, Fletch had no points and 1 assist or something like that. Something, basically no impact on the game. Albeit everybody had touched the basketball, so they'd made lots of passes being made. The difficulty is that they other than
they were 15 points down.
15 down, yeah. And the problem is, in changing systems or changing stuff on the fly in the middle of the season is tough. Particularly when you don't necessarily have the personnel, to do it. What you tend to find is during the season, players themselves figure out what works. Players themselves look to maximize their own production for obvious reasons. You do what you can do, and you don't do what you can't do. And players who are in the BBL are generally players who have certain skill sets. There are certain things that they can do, and very few of them can do everything because otherwise they're not in the BBL. So the players themselves try and figure it out and get the ball to where they are. So you see little bits of chemistry developing. You see the Fletcher kind of Green pick and pop, whereby Green hangs out on the top and Fletcher will throw it back to him and he'll knock down a three. You've seen it with Leicester for years with all the guys who know where the ball's coming. So if you change that, nothing to do different things, it can be tricky. And I thought they struggled with that. Again, London just cruise. Again, having Decker playing at that point also obviously helps him in cruise. And Sharma was outstanding. It was Sharma's game. I mean, I don't know if it was because he was slightly disappointed. Not playing the night before.
Aggrieved was the word that I was. Yeah,
it's not bad. Yeah. I think of it, there's a basketball phrase for it. Begins with D. Happens a lot on the big market. But he turned in a dominant performance. The other thing about Manchester was, Robertson played 8 minutes in this game, and there were 4 minutes at the beginning of the first quarter and the third quarter, right? And if Robertson if he's going to be starting he has to play more than that. If he's in, that's a group, particularly in a game where Sharma is dominating. Yeah. Right. But because they got behind, they need them to play faster. Then they play faster, he has to come off the court. Yeah. That means Green's overmatched with Sharma, which means Sharma can attack. And it also means Manchester constantly chasing the 8 ball, as it were. Vince has some issues because he does have a little bit of player duplication. You talked about Corey Johnson not playing much before. Nick Lewis at times, you're not quite sure when his minutes are coming from. Nate Robinson, Nick Lewis, Corey Johnson are slightly different, but they're not far away from being the same type of player. You certainly can't have all 3 of them on the court at the same time. Yeah. It's a struggle to have 2 of them on the court at the same time, to be honest. And that means they're constantly struggling to mix and match the way they need to. And they may be best ultra small, to be honest. So I'm talking about those guys. I'm also not mentioning Dirk Williams. And Dirk Williams is kind of a combination of all the good things of Nate Robinson, Corey Johnson, and Nick Lewis. Yeah. Put all 3 together, you kind of end up with Dirk Williams' set, So he's going to play the vast majority of minutes at that spot. And I mean, they just look really comfortable, London. And when you get a big guy who plays like that, I think he had 6 blocks or something like that, and he dominated. And you have to wonder where he's been, in relation to the rest of the year. And that's not a question. And that's not, I don't put that on the coach. I put that kind of on him. Because you can play like that and against an albeit undersized Manchester team, he should be in a position where he's dominating, he's playing more minutes, and he's not, there's times he's absolutely the best player in the league. There's times he's looked a bit vacant on the court. So I see where the coach is with him. And if he keeps playing like that, then then and that's a second choice centre. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Just give me a break. 28, 8, and 6 blocks. Give me a break. What else in this game did you see?
No, nothing. Basically, I was going to say I was minded of the old tap reference on this. Is Giants a couple of times got it down to 9, and London just turned the temperature up a degree or two, and it was Sharma or it was Ward Hibbett or it was whatever, and it just went back up towards 20.
Yeah, then there's Ward Hibbett's another guy who is effectively just going to be playing BBL now, but hopefully he's going to be playing enough BBL. I didn't even mention him before. He's a perfectly serviceable, but more than serviceable player. When he's been on the court, he's generally impactful. So he started, I think, this game as well, which is interesting because he's kind of supplanted Quealy. It's not really interesting. It's only interesting to people who care about who's the 11th or the 12th man on London Lions roster. So I would call it interesting, as in what's happening in in British politics or what's happening in the World Cup. But but it's interesting to me. So he might be climbing up the schedule. And the final thing is, the one thing I will say about Kareem Quealy, he has the best set of guns I've seen in the BBL in years.
That's quite a bold.
They had a close-up. They had a close-up on his arms, and I thought it was his thighs. I mean, geez, I'm not being that lad's been in the weight room, and dear me, I wouldn't. Yeah, he could be my minder. Get a job and be my minder for when all the people try and attack me as a result of inappropriate comments on the podcast.
So let's get you out of that hole. Sharma 28 points, 10 of 13 shooting, 8 rebounds, 6 blocks. Zubcic 18.7 rebounds. Decker 12 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Green had 20 points, although not the most efficient 20 he's ever scored. 5 of 15 from the floor, 10 of 17 from the free throw line, and 9 rebounds. Fletcher ended up with 12 points and 6 assists, and Dirk Williams had 11 points and 7 rebounds.
What I will say about Green, mind, is he does still play hard, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And we talked about, how is he going to be able to survive the kind of the weeks of the BBL being a rookie? All that stuff. Well, it's still there. Even when he gets into foul trouble, he's one of these guys in foul trouble. He keeps playing hard. You get 17, getting 17 foul shots against that London team means that you've got something about you. So he's kind of keeping them afloat a little bit at this point. But how many points did London score in this game?
95.
85 points.
There you go.
I didn't know that. I just had an idea.
Tick one up.
Yeah,
right, let's go to Friday night, where you and I were both at the Virtue Motors Arena for Newcastle Eagles 67, Cheshire Phoenix 75. Sam French in for Newcastle. Larry Austin, a late scratch with a injured wrist. Chirobia played a few minutes but wasn't fully fit. Start of the game, Defoe made a couple of shots, but Eagles giving up threes and layups. Not a great combination. 14 in a row for Cheshire, and they're 5-20 ahead.
Yeah, obviously. French, I think, came in the day before, so he was never going to start.
I think he had one walkthrough.
Yeah, Shelton's left, as I understand it. So that gives them a slightly different look to the roster, because he's probably a guy who they've brought in to start, I imagine, as starting centre to relegate Defoe to the bench. And then the key is to kind of figure out what you've got with Everett and Donovan Johnson, and find out, whether they can play together or play apart, or whether their skill sets match, or whether you need something else again. Because it's a constant kind of game of Jenga with Newcastle at the moment. They brought Cohen off the bench, and I can see the logic in that, because you kind of think that he could be a kind of your Kimball McKenzie type guy coming off the bench, pulling the second unit together, being doing all the things that make kind of the winning players that you need. It also means that you get your 2 scorers on the court in Hamlet and Kyle Johnson early. But that said, if that was a starting line that they've been using in practice, then it flat out failed to deliver anything in relation to either defensive intensity or offensive execution. That said, Cheshire made everything as well. Now, Cheshire, because they haven't got Ocherobia, really, and even without Austin, it actually kind of made them in that quarter in particular, probably not over the course of the whole game, but in that quarter, it made them hard at guard because they're absolutely a 5-out team. 5 guys on the 3-point line, basically. And then the 6th guy coming is Jack, and he's shooting threes as well. Which meant that, to defend a 5-out team, you haven't even got a Larry Austin you can kind of help off and say, well, look, go on, Larry, you make 1 or 2, we're going to keep you from getting to the rim. You haven't got an Ocherobia who he's going to be diving to the rim to help off to give yourself a hand. So you've got to be really on it. And I'm afraid the Eagles weren't.
Nope.
They weren't, and it came. It was the second 3 that got me. It was probably the second play, third, fourth play of the game, where basically Evans was wide open on the right wing and got an early, easy rhythm shot. And Hamlet, who'd been chasing him off the screen, clearly thought that Kennedy was going to switch out onto him.
Yeah.
Kennedy didn't know that Hamlet was expecting him to switch out on him. And they both kind of stood there in the paint.
Well, sort of ran away from the ball.
Now, that's on Hamlet because it's Hamlet's job to communicate. It's his man. He has to communicate that switch. And if he has the only way it's on Kennedy, if Kennedy's decided he doesn't want to listen to that. Either way, there's no excuse for that because they're the 2 guys who've been there all season. Now, this isn't a kind of miscommunication stuff. That I'm pretty much be certain that Marcus Evans was near the top of the scouting report. You're not going to let get rhythm shots early in the game. And when I saw that, that's the type of kind of breakdown which kind of runs through a team in relation to who's going to make the next mistake, And and defensively, they just really struggle. Now, offensively, the ball got very, very sticky with Hamlet as a point guard. You can see why they've had to start Cohen in the past, because he wasn't able to initiate the offense in any which way. They didn't seem to have a focal point, apart from, as you say, a couple of Darius jump shots, which Darius basically made because no one else was making a play. And Everett really wasn't impactful again at all, and neither was, and Kennedy wasn't looking for a shot. So it was an absolute cluster error.
Indeed,
for that time, and Mark did what he could, which was he brought his other unit on, but it was at that point they were too, the team, they were too ready. They were in it. They were feeling it. They were rolling. They were on TV. They don't get home games on TV. They don't get as many TV games, so it's a big night for teams like that. And that's been Surrey, Plymouth, and Cheshire. I think you've covered all those 3 games at the arena. All those teams don't get home games, so that's going to be one of their only shots on TV, and they've came out ready to play. So it kind of summed it up when the last play of the game, last play of the quarter, and Hamlet blocked Hudson back in his face, and Hudson just chucked it up and it went in. But the lack of cohesion amongst the starting 5 who've been there for a while for Newcastle was pretty troubling, and it's not the start. They're not starter folks. It's, I think, the first time they've taken Cohen out of the starting lineup. It might be the last, to be honest, because I'm not sure they can generate enough good looks without with just him on the court, with just Hamlet on the court, because he was disconnected the whole game. But then it all changed a bit. Sorry, moving on, because in the second quarter, Cheshire went from feast to famine.
Yeah, they were 20 up at the end of the quarter, 31-11, and basically the offense sort of stopped, but Newcastle couldn't really score enough points to make any serious inroads back into the league.
No, they didn't get any offense off the defense, unfortunately. I mean, the noticeable difference, obviously, and you're always looking for immediate signs, albeit small sample sizes, the noticeable difference was French in the middle. You think, well, what's this guy? Is this guy? Because if you actually look at him, his rep as a defensive player, he played in Slovenia last year. He was conference all first team defensive player. He's blocked a ridiculous number of shots at St. Louis. They played on a winning team. His foul shooting numbers are horrible. He doesn't look like a guy you think you're going to throw the ball into for 20 a game or anything like that. So he's going to have to make the impact on the defensive end. And actually, he's a big bloke. And he did.
You know what? I looked at him and I thought he doesn't really look like a shot blocker.
Yeah, he doesn't
until he threw that one out. Was in the third quarter where he threw it into about the fourth row of the bleachers.
Well, the interesting thing I saw about the interesting thing I saw about online was that he tried out for the Tennessee Titans as a tight end.
Oh, really?
You have to have a bit of athleticism.
Yeah,
even
you do. Yeah.
yeah, because it's all about numbers, isn't it? So how you fast 40, how fast your feet are, how high you can jump, how good your hands are. So yeah, I think he's an unusual looking player. He's kind of he's almost a bit Billy Singleton like in that. Gets a bit further off the ground.
But yeah, Billy never jumped that high.
He never jumped at all. Didn't need to. He could lean. So he actually made a substantial difference insofar as it just felt that maybe it was also the Cheshire bench and Cheshire cooling off, but it just felt that there was something more in the middle in relation to the screen row. But as you say, Eagles really couldn't score enough as a result. In the meantime, Jamel Kennedy, who's probably been on the face of it their best player all season, had his worst game, and just basically his head went probably halfway through the second quarter, I think, because of the way other people weren't doing things, and defending and cutting and moving and setting screens, etc., running plays, and he had one shot in 18 minutes, and no impact in the game, and unfortunately, the way the Eagles are at the moment. They are not in a position where they can win in those circumstances. Wow. So they lost him, and unfortunately they got a little bit out of Kyle Johnson got fouls early, so they didn't have him on the court in the second quarter when they were making the defensive run. Yeah, and they struggled to score. So what you saw out of Newcastle, and I've talked about them quite a lot, so we'll get to Cheshire in a minute. What you saw of Newcastle was kind of a defensive unit and offensive unit, but you could see that Mark was kind of juggling offense and defense the whole time. So you've got your defensive unit with French and Ubiaro and Cohen, who got some steals, and and those guys are working, and Donovan Johnson, and those guys are working really hard defensively, but they're not being able to finish at the other end to kind of cut it down. So what really should have been probably an 8-point game at half time, given the balance of the second quarter, actually ended up 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Just a word on Cheshire, because obviously you mentioned Newcastle a lot. As I say, their easy offense, what they lose with Austin is they lose their easy offense. No, so that everything had to be right for them to make plays, or ultimately Evans, as it was at the end. They lost their easy offense, which meant that the Eagles could pressure them a little bit more and could get stops. But they're obviously a lot more together at this point because they're a tight group. There's only probably 9 of them who are playing any realistic minutes, and they've been together basically 2 months now, since Jack came in. So they're tighter and they've got more idea of what their responsibilities are, and they didn't beat themselves. The other thing was that Jamal Anderson was the best player in this game by a long way.
Yeah, he was good.
And I haven't watched it back on the TV.
I mean, the stupid thing is, the funny thing about it was we were talking about it on the way home, me and Roe went, you know what, Anderson was so good off the ball defense. I don't think I talked about it enough. I probably should have talked about that more, because he did such a good job of keeping the ball out of Hamlet's hands and just.
Well,
and obviously
they can use him. They can use him for that, but he also dominated his position.
Yeah,
he dominated Kennedy in this game. He had Anderson had 16 points. He got out in transition. He got some deflections. He did this. He did the stuff on the ball. He did the stuff as we do, and obviously he does. He can deny as well. But that's always been the thing about Jamal. He seems a bit of kind of a plug-in player. Well, plug him in.
Yeah.
At a certain spot, and he'll help the team, right? But he dominated his position.
Yeah.
As well as just being a plug-in guy. It wasn't just somebody you use as a quirk or a tweak. He was better and more efficient. I think he had 16 points on 7 shots. 6 shots, So he's more efficient than anybody else in the league. In the team, he played the best defense, and it was just enough to get them through at the end. So yeah. So what happened in the third quarter?
Well, let's just spin it to the fourth now. 47.
Just mention the third quarter when I don't know what. Again, I haven't watched it back on the TV, and I'm on the other side of the arena. But from what I could see, Mark absolutely lost it in one of his timeouts.
Well, we had something going on, so I wasn't really paying attention to the timeout. But Drew said after the timeout, and obviously Drew is the nearest to the to the Eagles timeout of the three of us. Drew said he absolutely ripped into them in one timeout. So much so that the fans behind, because obviously there's only an inch or two between the benches and the front row of the bleachers, were applauding Mark for laying into them.
And I saw that across, and you saw afterwards, you saw about 12 of the fans, and generally the fans who sit behind the bench are the ones who've been there the longest and know the most, you know. Who are going to get the most frustrated because they know what's going on, and you just saw them kind of rise as one, you know, on kind of the fourth throwing of the arms or something like that. And sometimes it takes that, you know, because what happened at the beginning of the third quarter was the Eagles made got 2 or 3 stops, and then they gave up 2 of the most awful defensive possessions when basically Hamlet let Evans just stroll past him at the paint, and kicked out an open 3 to Daniels at the top of the key, which precipitated the timeout. And, you know, the on-ball defense was awful. You can't, you know, it was just awful. And what fans don't necessarily understand, we always talk about a team did this, a team did that. It's generally not a team. It's always, the team is only a combination of the players that you've got out there. Okay? And in basketball, it only takes 1 or 2 to be off the pace. It only takes 1 or 2 to be behind to create the hole, which other people then have to fill. And it's the other people who are trying to fill the hole who are the ones that look bad. They know it's not them, so then their irritation level grows. And I'm quite sure this is what happened with Kennedy in this game. Kennedy was just gone by the end. That he's thinking, well, these guys aren't doing this, that, and the other things that they're meant to be doing, and we're giving up easy stuff. And what it took for Newcastle was, I would probably say, some leadership from Cohen and Kyle John. To actually show a little bit of moxie. And chutzpah, and kind of, at the very least, say, look, this ain't. We're not going to go.
We're not going down like that. I thought Cohen was really good in the fourth quarter, to be fair. So let's get to the fourth quarter. 47-61 with 8 minutes to go. Donovan Johnson 3-pointer, Carl Johnson and 1, and it's down to 5. Cohen hits a 3 to make it 63-66 with 3:50 to go, and you're thinking, for as well as Knicks have played and as hard as they've worked, they're gonna lose it at the death here. But Evans took over. He scored 8 points in a row. He scored the last 12 points for the Knicks, and that 8 points in a row took them out to a 10-point lead.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things. One, again, that run with the beginning of the fourth quarter came with French on the court. You know, and at this time French was on the court with Kyle Johnson, Donovan Johnson, and Cohen, and I think it was Mockford as well. So they're guys who know, if I can put it this way, how to play or know where they should be. You know, we're not seeing some of the flakiness from others, and French being in that middle allowed Newcastle to get some steals, some rebounds. There's one rebound he went up and got when he fell on his back, you know, which he was kind of okay, and the block shot you mentioned, and provide just a little bit of deterrence. The difficulty, of course, was that he's just flown in and he was blowing by the middle of, so he had to come up with 5 minutes to go. And then, as you say,
I think something's just happened in the football, has it? 3-0. There we go.
Oh, right. Well, I'm watching it behind you, so I was going to have a bit of fun with that. Never mind. You had me
scared. I have a Christmas tree between me and the television, so I can't see it, but I could hear some vague noise.
Oh, right.
My wife is very calm through all of this, I must say.
Well, I've got the mobile phone on in front of the TV here. I'm just keeping an eye on it every so often. But obviously, when you said something's happened, then Senegal had the ball, but I'm so far behind you, it just looks like we're off now. So yeah, Saka, brilliant. Yeah. I like Saka. I don't know. The fans don't like Saka, but I like Saka. Everybody thinks Gareth's always wrong, and I think he's generally always right. So I'm a Southgate man. It's tough. Don't like it. Don't listen. Anyway, yeah. So they did. So French is out of the game, and then basically all Cheshire had to go to was the Will Neighbour, Marcus Evans pick and roll. That's hard because Will Neighbour's already made 3 threes, and Donovan Johnson's guarding Will Neighbour and basically having to face guard him, and that leaves Evans one-on-one with Cohen primarily because he's got to go there. Unfortunately, I'm afraid none of the Newcastle, certainly the wing guys, did not help sufficiently to close the lane to make them go somewhere else. So to start with, the tactic was we'll go under the screen, because I could hear Darius shouting out under. So we'll go under, make Evans make a shot. Well, he got a rhythm shot. He knew it was coming, knocked down. Next time he gets to the rim, and there's just not enough togetherness in that group at the moment for somebody to make a decision, which is, I'm going to come off my man a little bit, and that might mean my man scores, but at least I'm not going to leave David Cohen out there on an island with Marcus Evans. The frustrating thing for Newcastle is that Cohen's actually the best help defender on the court. He helps, he dips in, he's like McKenzie, dips in, gets his hand in places, takes charges, does little things, but he can't do that if he's on the ball, and he has to be on the ball because Hamlet's not good enough on the ball at the moment. He has to be better on the ball. And in relation to this game, what it came down to, and I'll cut it very, very short, was one, Anderson outplayed Kennedy, which was something that Newcastle can really struggle to have happen and still win. And secondly, at the end of the game, Cheshire's 2-guard outperformed Newcastle's 2-guard because Hamlet's with Newcastle to do what Evans did. Hamlet and Mark had to put Hamlet back in with 2.5 minutes to go because he was trying to figure out whether he needed offense on the court or defense on the court. And just wasn't there, and wasn't able to do what Evans was able to do. And that's what kind of wins you games in the BBL. And of course, it's Hamlet's first year, it's Evans' second year. So he's been around a little bit more, and you hope that Hamlet will get to that point. But if you're Javion Hamlet, you can't play a game against Cheshire and end up with 8 points and not scoring a point in the second half. Not with the level of ability you've got. Not if you're a 20-point scorer in this league. And so far this year, I'm afraid they've even in the close games that Newcastle have got to, which have primarily been at home, they haven't had anybody as of yet who's kind of been willing to take that next step, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Carry them over the edge. Cheshire just did what they had to do. Marcus Evans closed the game down. It would have, I think, have been a bit of a travesty if they hadn't won the game. But then I look at the stats, and Newcastle won 3 quarters. It's the first quarter.
Yeah.
So be it.
Kyle Johnson, 17. David Cohen, 4 or 5 shooting for 11 points, 7 assists. Donovan Johnson, 10 points and 5 rebounds. Evans, as I say, he scored Nick's last 12 points of the game. He had 19 points and 4 assists. Anderson, 6 of 6 shooting, 16 points and 6 rebounds. Teague, 5 of 8 shooting, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. They were 11 of 24 from the 3-point line, Cheshire. So let's go to Saturday. Surrey Scorchers, 81. Leicester Riders, 90. Josh Jefferson in for Surrey. No Washington still for Leicester. Leicester getting to the basket pretty easily early on, jumped out to a 9-2 lead, and that was almost the pattern of the game, just Leicester getting to the rim. Yeah, it was, and and obviously Leicester's starting 5 struggled a little bit lately, and I think they came out with a focus, if I can put it that way. Surrey are in this difficult situation whereby they're a little bit like Newcastle. They've now actually got more players than they actually need. Now that they're not necessarily at this point in time because some of them are still injured. They brought Jefferson in. I assume that's for Ray. I don't know. Because he's a 5th import, so I assume that either Ray has gone home or Jefferson is simply kind of a stopgap till he gets back. They've still got obviously Taylor to come back. They've got Lawrence to come back, but they've also and Josh Steele to come back. That's a lot of players, But they've also introduced moving parts, if I can put it that way, at kind of recent intervals. So Shackham Johnson wasn't there for the beginning of the season. Then Quincy Taylor comes in, and he has a couple of games, and then Ryan Martin comes in. And he has a couple of games more, but not with Taylor. So they're constantly trying to reinvent their offense because what that means is now Charleston Dobbs is playing off the bench. Luke Bruzumbu is not playing quite as many minutes, albeit he's been injured a little bit. And Wang's role has changed from point guard to off guard to small forward. And the problem when you bring guys in on top, and it's a little bit like the problem Newcastle have had. What I mean by on top is kind of to start as opposed to come off the bench. Is that they end up being kind of impactful players or players who are trying to make an impact, and that impacts everybody else's opportunities because someone gets relegated and someone's now playing a different group of players. So what you lose
what you gain in the talent, you lose in cohesion. And I think that's happened with Surrey, particularly in relation to Martin. He's only had 3 games in, but the way that he plays, he's a high usage player. You know, he's not shy.
No.
He knows what he is. He's going to put the ball up often early in the shot clock. And to be honest, they need some scoring. So, you know, it's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not the way they've been playing all year with their ball reversal. So he gives them a bit more quick offense, but he's also turnover prone, and as I say, makes some decisions where he doesn't quite finish those shots. You then have Taylor, who's having to decide whether he's a facilitator or a scorer. What do they need? And that's a difficult thing because of the different pieces that he's got. And they're kind of starting Jack Donnelly, but they're playing Johnson, so they're not quite sure which of the two is their main guy, you know. And when you throw all of that into the mix, they're a bit discombobulated. And they didn't get much in the way of easy offense in this game. Defense, I thought they were better early than they were certainly the last time they played Leicester. But I thought Leicester were also on it in relation to running their stuff. And also Leicester changed a little bit as well. And again, I don't know if people listen to this stuff, but you know, last week we were talking about how, you know, they struggled at Caledonia because I thought they were trying to force feed Nelson Henry a little bit early with some of the kind of the baseline sets, ball in the post. This game, they started off in their screen roll stuff. They started off with Whelan with the ball high, with Thornton with the ball high, and kind of throwing it from instead of trying to throw it down low, they were doing it from out the high screen and roll, which actually gave Nelson Henry a little bit more space to operate in the middle, and he became more impactful as a result. So I think they made a slight adjustment as well, and I think it was a good one because it changes up the number of threats that they have at an early stage. And yeah, in the game, it kind of tapped on, and Surrey really didn't know what their offense was. And when you play Leicester, my view of playing Leicester was when you had to attack them early in your shot clock. You had to attack them down the middle, because the moment that they get you throwing the ball from side to side, looking for the best shot, running multiple actions, they're just going to be there. You're not going to throw them off. They know what's coming. They're going to be in your way, and you're going to end up in exactly the same place with 7 seconds to go in the shot clock as you would have been with 21 seconds to go. But the ball might not be in the person's hands who you want. So I thought Surrey did a lot of side-to-side stuff in the first half, and I don't think it worked for them. And actually, when they got to being more aggressive and more direct in the second half, and Wang started attacking off the screen and roll early in the middle screen and roll, whereby it's harder to be in the middle. You've got a direct advantage. Leicester struggled a little bit.
There was nothing really in the way of big runs in this. It was just sort of Leicester easing out to a lead. Surrey closed it back, but Leicester just kept getting to the rim, kept getting to the foul line. So we're 34-51 ahead at half time. And second half, Leicester's 3-point shooting was awful. I mean, some really good looks that you just expect to go in, and they didn't. And I thought that kept Surrey in the game. They didn't look like they were going to get all the way back, but it kept them in it meant Leicester weren't 25 ahead.
Was there a ridiculous technical in the first half in this game?
Oh no, it was Thornton. Thornton stood up.
Thornton stood up on the bench.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
yeah.
All right. So one player stands on the bench, automatic technical. Not a fan. It's like, you know, come on. You know, I like my referee watching the court. To be honest, you know, I like them to be able to turn their head to the benches only when someone curses them out or says something to draw their attention. I mean, yeah, if he's jumping over the fence, not halfway on the playing court, fine. But someone rises up, you know, no, I'm not a fan. Anyway, I think in a couple of games so far that we've done, I've missed a couple of things I wanted to say about the refs, so I'll make a note of them for next week and future, so I don't forget, because the games kind of merge into each other. But you're right about Leicester. I thought Surrey had more success because they attacked. They were more direct. Quincy attacked. He was more direct. He wasn't kind of settling for jump shots with 5 seconds to go on the shot clock. And Paddy Wang attacked, got to the rim, and Ryan Martin made some threes. You know, which is basically what Ryan Martin needs to be doing. He needs to be the stretch for, you know, creating space for Quincy Taylor by pulling out the big away from the basket and knocking down the shot or attacking off one dribble. If he does that, he's fine. When he over attacks or when he goes too early, then that's when they have problems, because they end up running the other way. for Leicester. Got the best game out of Menzies have had so far, to be fair. You got 10 and 7. And I thought there was some pretty lazy switching with Surrey, whereby they were switching kind of bigs onto littles and littles onto bigs. And if you're going to do that with Aaron Menzies, it's a layup, because the Leicester passes are good enough. I suppose the one interesting thing for me about Leicester going forward was that, at 3 minutes to go, I think Thornton took a bad shot or took a shot that Rob didn't think he should shoot. And that was it. He was sat down and Mackenzie was finishing the game for him.
Yeah.
So there's still kind of and I'm sure he doesn't want it to be that way. I'm sure he'd love it to be Thornton for in that game, but he's not trusted at this point yet in the way that a Mackenzie or a Washington is. So we'll see how that plays out, because they're probably going to need him at the end of games against the very best teams, when they need a bucket to go there, and he's not quite at that point. But apart from that, I thought it was pretty routine for Leicester. Surrey playing in spurts again, and playing like a team who doesn't quite know what they are, which, to be fair, is exactly what Newcastle played like. So they're the two teams that are at the bottom.
Martin with 15 points and 5 rebounds. Jefferson on debut, 15 points, 5 of 14 shooting. Wang 14 points, 8 assists, and Johnson 14 points, 6 of 7 shooting.
Jefferson's
9
interesting,
rebounds.
I mean, because you always look at the new guy, think, what is he? What's he about? And he reminded me of McKnight from Manchester last year. The way that he played. I mean, the first time he caught the ball on a dribble handoff, boom, it was up. He knocked down. It was like, okay, I know what I am. I'm a scorer. I'm going to score the ball. There's no hesitation. That might help them in due course. That might help them in due course. But as I say, they've got a lot of bodies now. Lawrence played today, and then Steele will play, and they're going to have to find the roles for them very quickly and decide what kind of team they are, because there's nobody in this league who's going to give you a win.
Darren Nelson Henry had 16 points and 7 rebounds. Jackson 15, Thornton 14. 6 players in double figures, 3 of 16 from 3-point range, which is very un-Leicester-like, given the shots that they had. They had some really good looks that they didn't knock down.
Oh, and by the way, I have to say, I was watching this game. The word hangdog came to mind. Which player?
Hangdog? Oh, I don't know.
Mark
Loving. Oh, yeah.
Mark Loving.
He was 06 of the 3-point shoots.
I mean, if Mark's ever been excited in his life, I'm not sure. He's got two expressions which are basically blank and slightly frustrated. And that's not a bad thing. That isn't a criticism at all, because give you that type of player to the one who does all the chest banging and all the waving every time you make a shot. I'm on that. But there was a couple of times I thought, come on, Mark, just smile. Just smile. This is many people would love to be playing basketball for a living, and be quite as talented as you are. You just looked like, oh my goodness. Anyway, that was the only other thing that came to mind in this game.
So that is now 36 games unbeaten against Surrey now in a row for Leicester, and 5 prime ministers. Hey,
I'll keep talking.
Go on.
I've just been to a pantomime this afternoon. Actually, it wasn't a basketball game for once. Anyone wants to go to the little panto that good at the South Shields Customs House. Fantastic entertainment and multiple references in relation to Rob Braverman. There was a Boris Johnson cameo, and others. Google it. It's Robin Hood Customs House. Sponsored by a very good local firm of solicitors.
Oh, really? There we go.
Entirely entertaining, and for once, I could literally, I really probably should have been shouting on Friday night, "He's behind you!" to some of the players, but instead it was on the court. And the other thing is, actually, while we're finishing on Saturday, because as you know, I don't watch enough, and we don't watch enough basketball. My eyes just turned briefly on YouTube to the Eagles ladies playing at the Manchester Six. And I only raise this because kind of a horror, kind of ghoulish flash from the past. I see this bald pate of a referee shining up at me, and realize that Roger Harrison is still yet to retire.
Yeah, Roger's still going.
Roger is still going.
Yeah.
And the mannerisms are the same, and the fingers are. It's great. So sorry, Roger. I mean, Roger, for all people know, is probably one of the. It's probably about 10 years since he's done BBL. I guess probably even more.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's been a while.
15 years.
Yeah. He's still doing loads. Like he did Rob Paternostro's
that's right.
game, and I was chatting to him, and he literally he'd been doing something in Sheffield, 3 games in Sheffield, come down to do this, and was going back to Sheffield the next day to do another 3 games. There's
those
no
who don't know,
Roger.
I mean, he was truly a role model in relation to bald referees. Because I think referees prior to Roger who were bald by necessity.
Yeah.
My impression was always that Roger was bald by choice.
Yeah.
Right? And he also had this wink in his eye, this kind of glint in his eye. And the story I always kind of tell about him or remember about him was a game at Newcastle Arena. Probably the first game of the season, I think possibly against Chester Jets, probably 2004, something like that, when the league had just mandated the shirts tucked in rule. And or it had just been done by FIBA. And halfway through the 4th quarter, Fab went up to try and block a shot, and it might have been Calvin Davis or something, and they both came down kind of onto the floor, and they both got up. And Roger took one look at Fab, who was already on 4 fouls, and realised his shirt was out, teed him up, fouled him out. And I wasn't knowing the bench of this, but I was courtside. I didn't know what it was. What's happening here? Teed him up for having his shirt untucked. And actually, Roger knew Fab very well from playing from Birmingham. Because he used to muck around together and be around together. And so nice to see you, Roger. I probably don't listen to this. Keep rap. Maybe do a couple of BBL games just out of because, to be honest, at times you can't be much worse, mate.
Let's move on to the other game on Saturday night, which was Bristol Flyers at home against the Sheffield Sharks. Bristol Flyers 72, Sheffield Sharks 76. Mahan was back. I think he was missing the last game. Nichols was back, and Nelson wasn't back for Sheffield. King made a 3 on the first offense for Bristol, but they'd only make 1 field goal in the next 8 minutes and only 1 offensive rebound, and that was turned over straight away. So Sheffield jumped out to a 19-9 lead.
Yeah, it's a weird game. It was a weird game to watch because, to all intents and purposes, on all kind of markers of the game, Sheffield dominated it. Their defense was controlling, and Bristol really, and particularly without Miller, who went down on his ankle in the beginning of the 2nd quarter, Bristol really kind of struggled to create anything other than basically jack up shots. Sheffield had the advantage of an interior game, which Bristol didn't. But Sheffield also got their best performance of the season out of Marcus Delpeche, who dominated. And he hasn't done that all season. He hasn't played that way. But obviously he's going up against...
He doesn't play his brother every week, to be
fair. Every week, but he dominated,
you know?
And he was, I think, the fundamental difference in the teams, because Coke was all right, and Yemi was okay, but, Delpeche was in the middle, and Sheffield were always going to, I think, struggle to generate that much offense without Nelson. But what they were able to do was to control the tempo of the game, which they needed to do. And what Bristol were unable to do was to create any offense off their defense. And that left them in the half court relying on making shots. I think I looked at one point, they were 5 of 21 from 3. And the only guy who really showed an ability to kind of create a shot on his own was VJ King. Outside of that, until the 4th quarter, when Watson Gale got going, I thought Sheffield were really, really good in this game. But they're playing an old school brand of basketball. It's almost like they're doubling down every week, and it's getting more and more like that. This game, I think, they shot 11 threes, something like that. They shot 5 threes.
3 of 5.
5 threes. This is like Knicks in the Garden, 1988. Charles Oakley.
So Mick Bett actually asked me when was the last time that somebody shot 5 3-pointers in a game, and it was Mersey Tigers against Newcastle in was it 2012 or 13?
Probably the Mersey last season when they weren't very good.
Yeah. Jack Hudson was playing for Mersey.
Yeah, Gail Hudson was playing for them, and they didn't really have much
And
that year.
they were 0 for 4 from 3-point range. But since 2009, there'd only been 3 games that had a team with 5 or fewer 3-pointers before.
To be fair, our defensive scheme was always to take away threes anyway. So, you know, they take away 3 attempts. So I can understand why that was, because they didn't really have much talent on that team. They went over to yeah, but I mean, Sheffield got talent. You know, Sheffield got guys that can shoot it. Rodney Glasgow can shoot it. You know, Channel Banks can shoot it. Jordan Routino can shoot it, and they shot 5 3s. And what that shows is a kind of a discipline. You know, there was nobody coming up chucking something up early. There was nobody going to kind of use that ubiquitous and horrible phrase "heat check," which basically excuse bad shot.
It's a jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a heat check. That just means it's just a bad shot, you know.
Because the other thing it shows is that if something is working, you keep doing it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bit like Leicester in the first half. And sorry, they were getting to the rim and they were getting to the foul line. So why would they not keep doing that?
And the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reality of it. The more you do it, the better you get. And so they did that. But and you thought you're always waiting for the Bristol spurt, and it never quite came. And they thought it might happen at the beginning of the third quarter, and it didn't. And Sheffield just kind of meticulously plodded away from them two at a time. You know, the baskets they went in 2 by 2. Hurrah. Hurrah. And they got up to about 10 and 12. And then I think I was interested that you saw going in at the end of the third quarter, there was a little shot on the camera, and you kind of saw Watson Gale strolling off like, we got this, I got this, we got this. Let's go, yeah, okay, we're okay. And the fourth quarter, they really had a good go at it.
They did. He made a couple of threes. Bell had an and-1. They had a 17-4 run to 69-66 with 2:26 left. And then
at that point, you thought they had it because you thought they cracked Sheffield. Because, you know, my view of this game was always, well, it was 2 things. It was one, if Sheffield needed to stop to win, then they would win at the end. If Sheffield needed to score to win, then Bristol would win. I really didn't. I couldn't see Sheffield scoring to win, but I couldn't see them giving up a score to lose. Actually, and to be fair, they 2.5 minutes to go. They got a horrible call on them. I think Delpeche got called for an illegal screen. Maybe 2.5 minutes to go. Certainly, one of their bigs did. No, beg your pardon. Bristol got a horrible call on them. It was the other Delpeche who got called for it.
2:12 to go. Delpeche fouled out on his 5th Banks and 1, but he missed the free throw.
No, what was the play before that? It was at the other end.
Oh, I haven't got that.
You haven't got that.
I haven't got.
If go back to if the guys.
Well, the play before that was the Bell and 1 that made it 69-66.
So there was an offensive foul on Sheffield the possession before that, which was awful, where the guy, I think Delpeche tried to set a screen and then rolled to the basket and just ran into the guy who was going under a screen, and the ref called an offensive foul. So anyone wants to go and look at YouTube at 2 minutes 40 seconds of that game and look at the offensive foul call back and tell me how that's an offensive foul is beyond me. Anyway, so then we go down the other end, and as you say, Bell got the end 1 and they go up 3. And at that point, I'm thinking Sheffield is done. I just don't see how they're going to get over it. But to be fair, they did.
Yeah, Banks and 1, but missed the free throw. So 69-68. King then missed. Routino had a second attempt on his shot go in. 1:30 to go. 69-70. Watson Gale missed. Glasgow missed from the elbow. Mahan missed a 3. Smith got an offensive rebound. King missed a 3. Rowe is loving all these offensive rebounds. They're not turning into points, by the way, but great job. And then this bit made me instantly think of you. 25.6 seconds to go. There's a foul called, a timeout, and the Atiba advances the ball. And they're obviously, at that point, they're up by 1 point with 25.6 to go. So they could have the whole shot clock in the backcourt, or they could advance the ball and have 14 seconds, and he advanced the ball.
I'm a child of the late 80s, early 90s, but I was quite a boring child, right? So I didn't do acid. But watching this game, I felt like everybody else had, or I had. Because for like 30 seconds at the end of this game, I'm trying to kind of work through in my own mind, kind of comprehend, the thought process and decision making, and to go through them, one by one. I don't think that was a good decision to advance the ball. I understand why you would do it. You don't want to be turned over in the backcourt. I get that. But you've got a point guard in Rod Glasgow who's not turned the ball over all year.
What you also do is you bait them into playing defense, because they were going to foul, and you could see when they advanced the ball, Kapulis going, no foul, because now he's thinking, we're going to get the ball back. We're going to get the ball back. So what you're doing is shortening the game. Now, it has to work, and to be fair to Atiba, it worked perfectly, because they took 13.6 seconds off the clock, and Glasgow hit a runner from the foul line to make it a 3-point game.
But why is that happening? Because this was my next bit of, brain screwery, right? Because yes, Andreas is saying that, and they're just coming out of a timeout. But Jelani, the reason Rod Glasgow made that shot was because 5 seconds to go, Jelani Watson-Gale tried to foul him, right? He ran out at Rodney Glasgow. He made his decision for him. It was an atrocious bit of defense. He literally ran out at him on the basis of, they're going to run the clock down. That was why he did it. He was because he was still thinking in foul mode when the clock's over. All he has to do there is play a 5-second play, stay in front of him, make him shoot a tough shot. It's going up there. Bristol are getting the rebound. They've got a fast break to win the game. So his defense at that point, I'm afraid, was rookie defense. It was a rookie mistake. Now, it's also one for all coaches, I think, in such circumstances. You've got a minute in the timeout, and you've got to be really clear with your players in that timeout, right? And you don't know, because the rule is that the offensive team doesn't have to notify the referee until the end of the timeout. I think he has to notify the referee at the 50-second mark. The timeout, the referee goes over, where do you want it? Back or front court? So they do that. But the defensive coach of that situation has to have his players understand both situations.
Yeah.
They take the ball out in the backcourt, which I assume that they assumed they were going to do.
Yeah.
We're fouling.
Yeah.
But if they don't, we're playing defense. And that message didn't get through. And I think that it's not the first time that's happened, not with Bristol, but with other teams this year who've been discombobulated by the fact that they've ended up fouling when they shouldn't.
Well, there was a game, the TV game we did at Newcastle, I forget which one it was the Surrey game, where they advanced, Surrey advanced the ball, and Newcastle fouled anyway.
Yeah, and it's like, that this can't happen. That's a decision. What Watson-Gale did was a decision which ultimately cost his team the best chance of winning the game. If you watch the video, he goes to pressure Glasgow. He goes and he tries to foul him as he goes past him. 35 feet from the hoop with 5 seconds on the shot clock. He wouldn't have defended like that at any other point of the game, in any other possession. But he made Rod Glasgow's decision for him. Now Rod made a play, and to be fair, Rod made a few plays in this game, scoring wise. It was season high top scoring, I think, for him, which they needed. It was a season high, which they needed from without having Nelson. But still, bad decision by Watson-Gale. So then Bristol called a timeout, and you tell me what happened next.
They advanced the ball, and we were flashed back to last season. To be fair, I don't remember them throwing it over the court out of bounds last year. Last year it was a 5-second violation generally. This time he just threw it all the way over the other side of the court and straight out of bounds.
What I will say is, in mitigation, the stuff they've run this year, they've thrown it to Miller.
Yeah.
And Miller's not on the court. Okay. So that's mitigation. But I don't know what they were trying to do. I watched it back. If you're going to throw that pass, then that's a play for somebody who's already there, because you're not going to ever want a guy to be catching the basketball, running away from the basket.
From the basket, yeah.
You're not.
My reading of it was Mahan was the quarterback going through his reads and got to read number 4 and went, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to just have to throw it and hope somebody catches it."
There's a guy standing in front of you, throwing it as leg.
Yeah.
Throw it down to the corner and make them reach around, maybe commit a foul, maybe knock the ball out of bounds. What you don't do is throw it across the court to somebody who's not there. Now if there was somebody who's meant to be there, I'm not necessarily putting the blame on the passer, because often what looks like a bad pass from the passer is just a failure to execute a play by the receiver. Because to make a good pass, you have to know where the guy's going to be, and you don't necessarily have the time for the player to be there waiting for you to throw it. the ball meets the player as they're moving. But this is why I say I don't know what they were trying to do, because he's running, even if he catches the ball, he's running away from the basket. And it's Redland, the play that London ran at the end of the playoff final last season, the wall play. But at least they had Cugini standing in that corner. Trying to set a screen for him.
Pass.
Yeah, trying to set a screen for him to catch the basketball to get a shot.
And a bad screen.
And the other thing is, on the back screen, on the wall screen, and the other thing is, there's 12 seconds to go, right? You're down 3, you take a 2.
Yeah.
In my view, you take a 2 100 times out of 100, right? Because the opposition are going to be defending the 3. You're going to struggle. If it's the last 3 seconds, you take a 3 because that's the only shot you've got, right?
Yeah.
But you are going to struggle to get to the rim, struggle to get an open 3 in that situation. You actually, you see the Sheffield coaches standing up to him, not defending the 3-point line. So you get the ball in bounds, you pull everybody out, you attack the rim, you try and score with 8 or 9 seconds on the clock. If in BBL terms someone's dumb enough, if they foul you, even better. It's happened before. If not, you foul, and then they've got to make foul shots. You extend the game. So I thought that was pretty heinous. So then it got even better.
Yeah. So what happens next is Sheffield tried to make a substitution. They tried to take Ogunyemi out of the game. Right. But Ogunyemi had only just come into the game. Yeah. And because the pass had been thrown across the court and didn't touch anybody, the clock hadn't moved. And if the clock doesn't move, you can't sub in and out of the game, or you can't sub out and then back in, which is, I forget who they were trying to bring back in. It might have been Cook. But whoever they were trying to bring back in is not allowed to come back into the game until the clock moves in some way or other. So Ogunyemi has to go back out onto court. And of course, they pass the ball straight to him. And he gets fouled, but credit to him, he goes and makes 2 free throws.
I'm not sure why he's coming out, because he's actually one of the best foul shooters.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
I must have missed one.
But they were quite happy to pass it to him, and he knocked them both down. So then it's 10.4 seconds to go, and now Sheffield have a 2-shot advantage, 69-74. So what you're thinking is Bristol need a quick 3.
Yeah.
What they did was take 10 seconds out of the game before they made a 3. It was 2.2 seconds to go, and Ollison hits the 3 at 72-74.
Yeah, well, to be fair, they got an open shot. Because they moved the ball a little bit. They turned down a couple to get that open shot, but it was probably 2 seconds too long. In any event, but you got a shot and you got it off just about in time. Problem is, when you're shooting a 3, you always think you got more time than you have, because it takes about 1.5 seconds before from when you shoot it to when it goes in. You lose about 2 seconds in flight. So they immediately filed Channel Banks 1.6. This is my favorite bit. I've been looking forward to this bit all day. And Channel Banks goes to the free throw line, up 2 with 2 free throws. So 2 made free throws means that you can't lose the game because you were up 4. He makes the first free throw, and he tries to deliberately miss the second one. And you can see he was disappointed with himself that he managed to somehow bounce in around on the ring a few times and dropped in. He was trying. Now there's 1.6 seconds, so I'm going to put the case for the defense, Your Honor. Good luck.
In essence, what he's saying is, if I miss this shot, they'll get the rebound and they'll have to throw it from under the basket. Now, what I would say is, with 1.6 seconds to go, there's probably enough time for a dribble. So you probably get to the your own 3-point line, and because you couldn't pass it very far. But you've got a chance, essentially, to tie the game, albeit from 70 feet.
You're still talking?
I've stopped.
Are you still talking? Because I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If in the planetary scheme of basketball, that is a good idea, and I would argue wholeheartedly that isn't. But on the base that it was a good idea, and that was the Sheffield plan, which I'm quite sure it wasn't. You would have Sheffield guys lining up for the foul shot.
Yeah.
And when the ball missed on the rebound, they'd have 2 hands there, and they wouldn't get a look. Right? That would be it, right? Instead, you've got all the Sheffield guys on the halfway line, and Channel trying to give Bristol the ball with a chance of making a shot from anywhere.
Yeah.
which could tie the game.
Yeah.
Which is objectively.
I think it was only the Channel Bank's plan. I don't think anybody else was engaged in this plan.
I do, and to be fair, he played very well in this game. He made some big plays, made one down the end as well. But there's something ever so BBL about a guy wrongly trying to miss a shot and making it. I mean, that is peak. That is the time at the end of that 4 sequence thing with the advancing the ball and then the Bristol play and the substitution that didn't count and all that stuff. Because and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody here. The bottom line is that if you make that shot, you're up 4, which he did do. That all you means is you've got to put your team back on the court with their hands behind their backs and you win the game, right? Yeah. At one point, when they did come back on the court, I got slightly panicky because Rod Glasgow actually
went chasing after him. What's he doing?
All the way around to the corner. And I'm like, don't jump, Rod, don't jump. Because that could be a 4-way play. But to be fair, he was just following him as opposed to doing it. So that's the game. Because even if they catch the ball, it goes up. There's no time left on the clock when the 3-pointer. Right? You can't lose, not unless you have some form of lobotomy halfway through the timeout. If you miss a shot, you give him a shot, you give him a chance.
Yeah.
No sense. So I don't imagine he'll ever do that again. And the other thing is a player, if you make a shot, kind of don't tell anybody you're pretending to miss.
Yeah.
Just make it and walk off the court. But so be it. But look, I mean, it's all a bit, taking the mickey a little bit. There were multiple mistakes at the end of that game, multiple mental mistakes, both sides. But overall,
England have won, by the way. Breaking news for anybody listening on Tuesday afternoon. England have won 3-0.
Yeah, Southgate's got another week, but seriously, I mean, Sheffield really good in this game. That is a hell of a win for them.
Yeah.
Very few people. Who's gone to Bristol and won? Somebody, but I can't remember who. That's it.
Yeah, no, they have lost 2 games at home. I just can't remember who the other one is.
Yeah.
Was it? Did Leicester split 2 games down there, or no? Was that last year? I'm thinking of last year. Am I?
Last year, Leicester have been down there. Have they? I can't remember. Plymouth, maybe.
No? Oh, was it? Yeah, maybe. I can't remember.
Anyway, whatever. They've lost. So that's a hell of a win for Sheffield without Nelson. Again, a double. Shooting 5 threes. I look at Jordan Routinho and I look at him and think, hang on, the guy's not basically shot the ball twice in the game. He's playing 38 minutes a game because he's critical to everything that they do. He's not making any mistakes. He's doing everything he's meant to be doing. He's not taking anything off the table for his team. When they need a big shot in the last 2 minutes, he makes it. That kind of 2 or 3 points, and solid play is what gets you through and what wins you a game. It may not show on the stat sheet, but it's massive, And it's just for them having dominated that game in my mind, then being down 3 with 2.5 minutes to go, they had every chance just to kind of fade away, and they didn't. It's an unbelievable win for them.
Yeah, really good win. So they 21 points for King. Bell had 12 and 6. Watson Gale had 12 points, although 4 of 14 shooting and 5 assists. They were 36% from the floor, 11 offensive rebounds and an 8 second chance point. So I'm just looking now to see who beat them. Caledonia beat them 71-93.
Yeah, they went down there on a Friday. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
They blew them out early. That's right.
So I've lost where I am now. Where are we? Banks had 18 points. Marcus Delpesh 17 points, 7 of 9 shooting, 12 rebounds, and Glasgow, as you say, is season high with 15 points. Let's come to today's game. We might skip through these pretty quick because there wasn't too much excitement. The one that was, hey,
pantomime though.
Yeah, it's highly recommended. The more exciting of the 2 games was in Glasgow, where Caledonia Gladiators beat Plymouth City Patriots 91-76. No Bunyan for Caledonia, still no Simons for Plymouth. Not a lot in it in the beginning. Sloan and Bailey then hit some threes to make it 17-11, but the Patriots then hit 11 points in a row to go 17-22 in front.
Yeah, Bailey's playing really confident. You can see that he's kind of growing into the role that he's got with his team. Plymouth are a really tight unit, but they are down on, like we've said before, down on BBL kind of experience and talent and numbers. Not so much talent, but certainly numbers. So they do play very cohesively together, though. And, you know, having unlocked Dusha and Dusha having to score because they don't have that many guys, that means that, particularly in the first 3 quarters of games, you've found that they're very, very tough to guard before they wear down. You know, Hassan has a heck of a lot of responsibility. He carries a lot on his shoulders in relation to interior scoring with that team, because when they need a bucket, it's generally giving him the ball. And it's tough for him because when he's coming up at the end of the game in the 4th quarter, he's playing lots of minutes. He's guarding their big guys that are going at him, and he's having to, you know, kind of maintain his energy levels at that point as well. And that's kind of where they're falling down a little bit. But as a unit, you know, if you would give me a team to play kind of a 15-minute game against any other team in the league, I wouldn't be far off picking Plymouth 6. Those 6: Dusha, Williams, Brandon, Hassan, Bell, and Hawthorne. You know, those 6 are not because of and you wouldn't say that they're the highest level of talent, of pure talent, but the way they play together and the way they understand each other and the way they're comfortable taking those shots, and the energy that they play with as well. You know, it's going to keep them in a lot of games, and going up to Glasgow and playing in Glasgow. And incidentally, they've got a mascot still called Rocky. What's going on there? You know, I mean, they're not the Rocks anymore. He should be, you know, Russell Crowe or someone.
Yeah,
like that.
there should be somebody in
Marcus Aurelius,
there.
You know, I mean, not Rocky anyway. Leave it behind, guys. It's a bit bipolar. They really, I thought, did well in the first half, and Williams carried them a little bit, and Williams made some shots and made some plays, and then they got out and ran, and they're spiky. And Caledonia were playing more players, which means that you have a little bit more issues with integration of players, etc. And Burns came in, and he was a bit hit-y-missy to start with, shot a couple of early shots on the shot clock, and there were times when they didn't quite have the right units on court, Caledonia, and they struggled to score. And then Gareth had to shuffle the pack again to get the right guys on court. But that's always a problem you're going to have when you have more players. Comfortable playing with.
So Brandon got his 4th foul 4 minutes from halftime, but after the made free throw it was on a technical. After the made free throw, they went on a 9-0 run to lead 34-43. Burns hit a couple of threes to make it a 3-point game, and it probably should have been 3 at halftime, but some absolutely awful clock management on the final play for Caledonia allowed Plymouth a run out to lead by 7 at halftime. Then second half, Burns with some threes in a 12-0 run. They went from 6 down to 6 up, 70 to 64, and it looked like it was going to be a bit of a dramatic finish. Dusha hits a 3, 78-75 with 3:26 to go, but then Caledonia got 13 of the next 14 points and eased home.
Yeah, firstly, there was a bad unsportsmanlike foul call in this game, I thought.
Yeah.
There's probably about 6 minutes to go in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
There's a long pass thrown forward, and I think Antonio Williams caught it.
Yeah.
Felt some contact and put the ball up.
Yeah.
And referee immediately called the foul, which was a foul.
Yeah.
It looked like a foul to me. And immediately, as he called, now, when they call fouls, it's either sideline or if it's a shot foul, the fist goes up and then the 2 fingers go up.
Yeah.
So the 2 fingers signify 2 shots, or the point.
Yeah.
That's 2 shots. Now this foul was called, and the referee immediately signaled 2 shots.
Yeah.
Right? Now they weren't in the penalty. Okay. Now if you signal, that means that foul was committed in a shooting motion.
Yeah.
If you commit a foul in a shooting motion, it's not an unsportsmanlike foul on a fast break.
No,
it can't be. Because it's in a shooting motion.
It can't
be unless it's excessive force.
Excessive force, that's the one. Yeah,
and that wasn't excessive force.
No, it wasn't. It was one of those where actually I was watching it, and the other game is obviously still going on as well. Yeah. So I've got an eye on both of them, and then because they then cut to the close up of the player and whatever, and then Kieran goes, "Oh, they've called that unsportsmanlike," and I went, "Really?" Yeah. And I thought, what happened there? How was that? So I actually went back on it to look at it, because I couldn't work out how it could be an unsportsmanlike from that way. But again, like you, it's one of them. But he was shooting, and what he's done is he's caught the ball and he thought, I'm going to get fouled, so I'm going to throw it up really quick here, so I get 2 shots.
No,
which is smart play for him. But in doing that, as you say, it takes almost every different variation of the unsportsmanlike out of play, because they all say this stops at the point at which a player goes into his shooting action.
If the referee told that foul before the shot, and just in a normal foul, so that's fine.
Yeah. But he
didn't. And the conversation the 2 refs had was too cursory. It was just a quick chat. It wasn't. We weren't discussing that. It was like, man. It was a last minute conversation. If I'm wrong, I'll be told I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll get a text message about it from somebody. But even if there was, and that the calls that get me most watching games are the calls which are discussed and which are then not right. Right? They're the ones that frustrate me the most. Yeah. Right. Because they're technical calls, which is all about not what you see. It's about the implementation of the rule. Right. And obviously I'm a stickler for rules. It's kind of what I do, So seeing that, as soon as that referee puts 2 fingers up, that's a 2-shot foul. That can't. That no way in my mind can be unsportsmanlike. And so frustrated by that. And then basically Plymouth ran out of gas. Yeah,
they did.
I thought Williams, and teams run out of gas when Williams was like 6'5", from the foul line, missed 2 foul shots. That they don't miss foul shots because they can't shoot. They miss foul shots because they work extremely hard and they're tired. And
some players miss them because they can't shoot.
Yeah, to be fair,
Williams is not one of those players.
No. And on top of that, so Glasgow and Caledonia have a bit more legs wise. And Onwas made a big play. They're up 5 with about 2 minutes to go, and I think it was almost an air ball jump shot, and he got an offensive rebound and a putback for an and 1. And when it got to 8, and I think they got the next play on a turnover and a run out. And at that point, I turned it off.
Yeah. Burns led the way with 24.7 of 15 from 3-point range. It's a lot of shots.
Burns is interesting. I mean, he came up with 15 threes, and he was shooting them in he made a couple in transition in a row in the first half. It's interesting that he's coming off the bench. He's playing off the bench, so it's not that he's starting. So 15 threes off the bench, that's a stat for you to look up. Who was the last bench player to put up 15 threes in a game? Trying to think who
my answer to any stat like that is Yorick. It's bound to be Yorick, isn't it? Bound to be.
Fair comment. And so he kind of shot himself into rhythm. It'd be interesting to see if he has that green light going forwards with them.
Hey, if you're going to make 7 and 15.
He made them in bunches from what I saw in the game. I wanted to in and out. He made them in bunches, and he kind of walked into a couple as well. So he's playing with excess confidence, which is better than playing with less confidence.
Confidence deficient.
Exactly.
Bailey had 22. Fraser had I've written down 11 points, 10 assists, and 5 rebounds, but surely it was 10 rebounds and 5 assists.
Probably. Bailey's kind of. I mean, I'm looking at Caledonia and trying to figure out where they're going as a group, and Bailey kind of seems to be stepping up a little bit as a leader, just a little bit. I mean, there was one. He got called for a foul, I think, in the 3rd quarter, which was hands on the ball. And he really wasn't happy about it, and he went and sat on the bench. And I think maybe in his 3rd or his 4th foul, and there's a cut on the camera of him standing up, and basically, as the shots were missing, using the old moniker "ball don't lie," and saying all that stuff. Of course, he's standing up on the bench. No one's teeing him up.
No.
The refs are looking at the sodding game.
Yeah.
This is my thing about it.
Bench is a little further back at class.
Bench is a little bit further back, and the fouls on the other side of it. I just see what you're looking for at this time of the year is of all the new players, who are the ones that appear to be emotionally invested in each game, because it's hard, because they're playing 36 games to grind. So you're looking at the ones who are taking that challenge, and who are the ones who are emotionally into it. And I mean, in relation to the other players on kind of Caledonia's team, it's not going to be Jimenez. Onwas is the strong silent type. Fraser's seen it, done it. He is what he's always going to be. Tappe is a bit young and young and gangly and a bit kind of not immature, but not ready to take on a leadership role if you're coming off the bench. And that leaves kind of Sloan, who is too cool for school, and him. I think it's going to be him, and I think that's probably good for them. You just see a bit of maturity and a bit of leadership in him. That's really interesting. When I say Sloan's too cool for school, I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. It's just that's kind of, he's a baller who gets buckets, and so he's not necessarily going to round them all up. And the final thing on all of this, and I didn't mention the Newcastle game, and I should have, but I watched it all week in virtually every game, and it is really getting on my what is the amount of unnecessary huddling that goes on by the players every single time the ball goes out of bounds.
Okay. You don't like an unnecessary huddle, is that?
Oh no, I'm not a fan of, I'm not a tactile individual. And this kind of every single time the ball goes out, come in, and somebody whispers some meaningless platitude, and then they all go back out to guarding who they're meant to be guarding. And I'm like, you got to be able to look at players in the eye, but you don't need to be every single time. It's like come together. Newcastle must have done it about 16 times in their game. And I'm thinking the message is just lost, and it's everybody. Every other team is the same. You're watching it. And it's together with this whole thing that started in the NBA about, every time you make a foul shot, you got to dap up with somebody.
Everybody, yeah.
And I'm like, I was on the foul line. If I made one, I want to come the ball back. I want to make another one. I don't want to around there and trying to wave to my mates and saying hello to my grandma in the crowd. And this may be, indicative of maybe the first indication of old fartery. Coming into this podcast, but I'll live with that.
It's probably not the first, isn't it?
Probably not the first. Okay, maybe I'm being over optimistic in relation to our target audience, but no, the huddling is doing my head in. I guarantee once you start you're talking over it because you're talking about the game, right? So you've got something to concentrate on, right? I'm watching it.
Yeah. I'll keep an eye.
Yeah, you will see it. It's just all I say is when you see the huddles there, just imagine, work out what are they actually saying, because I have no idea. Because none of it's 2 seconds, which means it's not long enough to convey any form of meaningful message. And all it's doing is taking you away from where you should be and focusing on what you should be doing. Anyway, moving on.
So I didn't mention we had the curse of the coach of the month for Andreas as Bristol lost. No such curse on Douche's performance, although obviously he didn't get the result. 24 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists for LVC. 14.6 rebounds for Hassan, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists for Williams, 4 of 17 shooting. You talked about it, the sort of fatigue of it all.
Yeah.
Let's go to the last game of the day. Cheshire Phoenix 90, Surrey Scorchers 61. Austin was back. Ochirobia was out. Hudson had a chest infection. He was out. And Andrew Lawrence.
Infection. He's played one game. He can
have a chest infection at any point, can't you? Yeah.
Come on, Jack. You were breathing all right on Friday night when you were scoring on the Eagles.
Yeah. Andrew Lawrence was in the lineup. And I must admit, this was one of the things where this game was not really that exciting. The other one was more exciting. So I was slightly more focused on the Caledonia game. And it was literally when I think he turned the ball over or something. And I heard Mark say, because I leave both commentaries on in case I'm looking at one and something exciting happens in the other. And he went, and Andrew Lawrence. And I went, Andrew Lawrence? I missed that. Andrew Lawrence is on court. But yes, so Andrew Lawrence was back.
It's weird as well that you kind of, you played on Sunday, not on Saturday. And you played on Sunday after you've travelled, 3 hours. Whereas you're not playing on Saturday when you've got a chance to get to the gym early and get ready. I don't, maybe it's because it was Cheshire instead of Leicester. That doesn't make much sense either because Cheshire are doing well. So that perplexed me a little bit. If you're fit for Saturday, you're fit for Sunday, you're better off playing at home where you can get yourself tuned in, if But yeah, well, he played, but in the first play, he ran screen and roll through the ball at the wing and they got a 3 out of it. But it's another guy who plays in a slightly different way. Really, I don't envy Lloyd's job at the minute because he's got so many pieces he's got to try and plug in to find a kind of a style of play, or to find. And basketball comes down to units. It's all about, it's not about how many good players you've got. It's about how they play with each other in the unit, how familiar they are with each other, how their skills complement each other. And they just got so many moving pieces, in and out, in and out, in and out, that as a coach, it becomes very difficult, particularly when you're playing against teams that don't have those moving pieces, because it means that you're on a different playing field to them. You're starting on a different playing field. And this game, I watched it back. I didn't really watch it live. I watched it with the arrows on YouTube, 10-second arrows. Surrey started okay. Obviously, it started with, as I said, that Quincy Taylor and Ryan Martin kind of dominant, kind of sidelines Wang a little bit. He may be the most creative guy. The Cheshire started a little bit slowly, had a little bit of Larry Austin, but not a lot. But Cheshire ground them down. And the thing with Cheshire is these guys know their rules and they're playing them really well. And it's actually kind of helped them not having Ocherobia, not because Mike Ocherobia isn't a good player, but because it just focuses everybody else on what they have to do. And it means that they're playing with Teague and Neighbour, and Ulf is playing a few minutes, but not that many. And they are a tough team to guard with Teague and Neighbour. And Teague in particular is possibly the most, I'll not say improved because you don't know what he was last year or whatever. But from the beginning of the season, when I saw him at the beginning of the season, I wasn't quite sure whether he was of the level. He's a big guy. His shooting numbers weren't great. His quickness wasn't great.
Yeah, unorthodox looking shot as well. It's more of a set shot, isn't it? It's a bit like, you remember Kozlauskas at Worcester, where he doesn't really jump on it.
He had one against us. I remember him. I didn't like guarding him. He was a shot put. And it always went. Yeah, absolutely. And he had an awful haircut. I don't mean he had the 1960s kind of Eastern Bloc Euro haircut, but he was 6'9" and he could shoot it. And he actually, the game we won the league with against Worcester, he made the three, which led to Tomo making the tip in to win the league, which was one of our games on the East on the So if you're really interested in Kozlauskas, go back and watch what must be probably about game 20 on the Eagles series. He has, but he didn't really have he didn't really seem to have a post-up move, and you're wondering where's he going to fit. Well, in fact, he's fitted blooming well. In fact, and what he's showing is not just the ability to knock down that shot with some regularity, but also kind of the ability to utilize that shot to put it on the deck and go at the rim. And also, one step further than that, not just put it on the deck, but put it on the deck, change direction, get his shoulder past, and at that point, it's over because he's so big, get fouled and go at the rim and finish. And so him and Neighbour are a really tough cover because you've got to stand next to both of them on the perimeter. And that opens the middle and it makes it really hard to help. And, if Jamel is making shots and being offensively assertive with that group, because he's getting lots of one-on-one opportunities, then they become really tough to guard. And I thought they kind of slowly picked them apart. Evans picked his moments, picked his gaps, got to the rim when he needed to, got to his pull-up when he needed to, and they get enough corner threes to really help break the gap.
Yeah. So it was, this one was like 8-all after about 7 or 8 minutes or something. But then Teague and Jack had back-to-back threes. Evans and Am won in the last minute or so of the first quarter to 22-16. They led by 12. Scorchers had their one run in the game of about 7 unanswered points to cut it to 30-25. And then Teague and Anderson hit threes. It was out to 10 at halftime. And then Surrey just collapsed after halftime.
Comments. One, Jack is impressive, and I think we'll be playing more minutes elsewhere. He's playing behind Anderson at the minute. He's kind of a 3-man, but he knocks down shots. He's a catch and shoot 3-man, and he's knocking down shots at the moment. The second thing is we have a contender for ludicrous technical of the season. Did you see it?
I'm trying to think now. I can't remember seeing it.
Paddy Wang dribbled the basketball into Jamel Anderson.
I don't think I did see this.
No, you didn't see it. It's probably about 4 minutes ago. 4 minutes gone in the second quarter. He dribbles the ball, just dribbling the ball at the court. Ken makes half a move, dribbles the ball, and Jamal Anderson guards him. He turns around. He thinks he's fouled. He's not being fouled, but he still has the ball. The ball's still live. So he's still playing. He's still dribbling the basketball. He turns around with one hand, with his left hand on the ball. He has it. With his right hand, he puts his hand up in kind of an open palm gesture to the referee, i.e., what about that? And then, with some venom, continuing to play the game, throws a, frankly, frustrated left-handed pass to his own player while the ball is still live, right? Kate Unsworth reffing, immediate technical. Lloyd Gardner, Paddy Wang, what for? Well, what it was for the open-handed gesture while the game is going on. Was that not a foul, ref? That was it.
Yeah.
What I think might have happened is that the ferocity of the pass that he threw in frustration to his own teammate has been attributed to some form of visual dissent for throwing a hard pass to your own teammate. Because if that is a technical, for what he did, then we would just have technicals all game, every game. And watch it back. It's probably third or fourth minute of the second quarter. And it just kind of, again, it frustrated us because you see, to deal with inconsistent, people say, oh, refs are inconsistent. Well, of course they are, because they're humans, right? They're different. Every ref is a different person. There's 30 different people who see the game in 30 different ways, that have different levels of tolerance, etc. And there are 30 refs in the BBL, right? So they're all going to be different. They're all going to be human, and they're all going to have different lines of what is acceptable and what is not. So the easiest way, I think, to kind of handle this, to get a degree of consistency, is if everybody agrees what is not a technical. Not what is a technical, what is not a technical, what is not enough for a technical. Okay. And I don't get on with this phrase. I've said it before, visual dissent is just a matter of words. What does it mean? Nobody knows what it means. Stamping your foot. I mean, I saw that you saw the London Lions game, the first second, I think Decker or somebody bounced the ball into the crowd. It might have been
There was one in the Leicester game where Loving, he was trying to keep the ball in play and he ended up out of bounds and he just slammed it down. Now he's not angry about, he's angry that he's not stayed in bounds and he's turned the ball over, or that he's not kept the ball in play. But if you do that after a foul, that's a technical.
Yeah,
it's the same action.
And then I've got PJ back in Newcastle a couple of weeks ago who kicked an advertising hoarding out of frustration with his own player, not with the ref. Now, is that visual dissent? No. Is he allowed to kick an advertising hoarding? Probably not. It's an equipment issue. But the point being is, can we just have an agreement as to what level of aggression or comment or ridicule a ref needs to be subjected to before a technical is given? The game was dead. Wang's dribbling the ball backwards. He's not being pursued. He's just passing the ball out. He looked at the referee like that. Open hand to the ref. What about that? That's a technical. No, how we? McCone got one at Newcastle last week for running away.
And handing the ball.
Handing the ball to the ref. Just nonsense. Just rubbish. And I'm thinking, and there's no consistency at all with any of it. And as I say, I'm not big on, everybody has to be the same, because they're never going to be the same. But there has to be a bottom line of what
I remember now Lloyd's reaction and the free throw, but I didn't see the technical that was called.
Yeah. And it was just like, what? And Lloyd just walked away. I said, what? What are we doing here? So so there has to be some emotion in the game. And if you're telling me that would have been a technical in the EuroLeague game, Eurocup game, give me a break. Just give me a break. But then, as you say, in relation to the game, it degenerated, unfortunately.
Dissipated, At one point, Cheshire scored 18 points in a row in the second half. So Teague top scored with 19. Jack had 18. Evans had 15. They were 11 of 26 from 3-point range. 24 assists and 8 turnovers. For
they moved
Cheshire.
The ball because they're attacking off the dribble and they're not trying to force the ball into spaces. They really don't pass it inside. If you watch it, maybe they might post Jamel every so often, but they really don't. It's all off the dribble. It's all off the high screen. It's all utilizing the shooting of Neighbour and Teague. it's going to be difficult for them to sustain it, and that's why they're going to need Ocherobia back in due course to help them a little bit on the glass. But it's almost easier for them without Austin to play that way as well. Austin kind of helps, but also hinders that way because he's a guy who can sag off a little bit. No, they played really well. They got two good wins this weekend. Yeah. And again, when you're meant to beat the two bottom teams, but they did that,
Taylor 16, Wang 13, 5 of 20 from 3-point range, 9 assists and 19 turnovers, just for comparison. Lawrence played 14 minutes, took 2 shots, didn't score.
Coherent.
Yeah.
You've got 9 assists, 19 turnovers. That was the stat I had for the Sheffield game, wasn't it? At one point, I think halfway through the third quarter, there were 8 assists, 17 turnovers, and they're up by 8. This is not basketball as I understand it. I'm becoming befuddled.
We should be at penalty kicks by now, but unfortunately, England didn't follow the script.
England have kind of ascertained they've moved up to the level of beyond basic competence, which to everybody of the current generation is only to be expected. But to the rest of us is like who remember as recently as Iceland in 2016, and Algeria in 2010, and Uruguay in 2004, whatever it is. It is nothing but, it's actually really, really good, so,
Do we know the France game isn't on Sunday, is it?
No, it's not. They're playing.
It must be before that, Friday or something.
Yeah.
Good. We don't want it crashing in on Sunday night breakdown again, if we can avoid it. I'll just run through the table quickly. London, 2 losses clear of everybody, 8 and 2. Bristol and Leicester both 8 and 4. Sheffield 7 and 6. Cheshire 7 and 7. Caledonia 5 and 5. Manchester 5 and 5. Plymouth 5 and 6. And then a bit of a gap to Newcastle and Surrey, 2 and 8 and 1 and 9. Those 2 teams in danger of being marooned, yes, if they don't get something together soon.
Yes, except it's a 36-game season.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. This time, so I actually think there is, in many ways, it's going to be who's healthy at the right time, and I'm assuming that both Newcastle and Surrey, because they have the talent, will sort it out. I'm not sure that either of them will sort it out much before Christmas. But but if you can get a roll going in January and February, just look at Plymouth last year, who hadn't won a game. When you've got a lot of games to play in that time, and you stay healthy in that time, then I don't think it's in any way. I don't think either team is out of playoff contention.
And the top 3 slightly ahead, and everybody else is a game either side of 500.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the way it's going to stay. I don't know. I have to have a look at London's schedule to come. I mean,
but the way they looked this week.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Bristol are beating them. Anybody winning the league apart from London is going to have to beat them 3 times out of 4. Leicester have already lost 1. Bristol have won 1. It's tough to see Bristol maintaining that level because A, they're not used to it. B, they're a new team. C, they've got a ton of road games to play.
They have played 3 away games, which is the lowest alongside Newcastle. They're 1 and 2.
Yeah, so that means that you're back to looking at Leicester. Leicester, as I say, will be up for the. My mindset is that Leicester will actually have a better chance in the knockout games, because of their knowledge of the knockout situation, of the court, of the ability to warm up, of the kind of the.
I think they're on the opposite side of the draw in both.
Exactly. So they could only meet them in the shot of getting the cup finals. And I think that's when they'll have the best shot at London, because I think finals are different. No, that might just London got high level players, so finals might be the best of them.
Exactly.
I'm not in any way jumping up and saying, this might, but they'll have. It's the only kind of time that they'll have any inbuilt advantage, which is in relation to their experience.
I've always been of the view that London will win the finals if they get to them, and that actually you're better off playing them on a Friday night quarterfinal after they've been somewhere.
Yeah, but I think that's only one of them left, isn't there? And one quarterfinal, and they've got to go to Bristol and Bristol do that. So Rob's got a heck of a good record in finals.
Yeah, true.
Certainly recent
Yeah,
finals.
yeah. I think it's something like 12 in a row or something like that.
And so you're looking at kind of experience of areas where Leicester may have an advantage over London, and that would be one, in a final.
They've got to get there first.
They'll get there first, and they've got to be glad.
They've beaten Caledonia, who've beaten them twice.
Haven't come close to that yet, and Jordan Burns shooting like Steph Curry. So who knows? But in relation to the league, that's tough. I mean, I think there's every chance London go off on a run without even trying to go off on a run.
Yeah.
And if Leicester, Leicester or Bristol, as is, absolutely feasible, drop another game or two in the midst of a busy run because they just don't have the squad that London do, and the league is tight and the league is tough. Then there's a 3 or 4 game gap in the foot. Yeah. The whole thing is done then.
Yeah.
And that's just what the BBL publicists want us to say. Lose interest because it's going to be done by January.
Yeah.
But call it as it is.
Indeed. Right. It's probably time for us to pack up and go for another week.
Another hour and a half, yeah.
Indeed. So whatever you're doing this week, have a great week. And Dave and I will be back next Sunday to give you more live football commentary, as well as a look back over the rest of the British Basketball League. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.